What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the AllSooners Podcast. Holy cow, we made it, guys. I think episode 205, y'all. How about that? We're still rolling strong. Today's a special edition Postgame Podcast. Oklahoma takes down, I guess you could say takes down. I said outlasts in my game story. SMU 28-11. What an odd score. And really, Ryan, what an odd game.
Yeah, really weird contest. Weird during the game, odd after the game, which we will get to. A game in which Oklahoma's offense sputtered and needed to get turned on a couple of times, and then suddenly when it was closing time, they finished about as strong as they had played all game. The defense, I don't think the defensive performance was as weird, Hoove. We'll get into it, but kind of as we previewed, SMU did ask some questions of Oklahoma. It wasn't perfect. There were some explosive plays allowed, but overall OU's defense played really well, and I think the end result was a game that Brent Venables said in his post-game press conference. He's not sure if last year's team would have won that game, and that's a sign of growth, and that was a consistent theme through all the guys that I at least talked to after the game.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of players, 3 coaches, including Brent Venables. And the word was something like, if this was last year, we probably would have lost this game. Or this was one of those games that we might have lost last year. Last year's team would have lost. I can't remember exactly the quote. But, Randall, it was there for SMU to stun the fan base. Okay, here's the quote. A year ago, I'm not sure we would have figured out a way to win that game. That's the quote. Thank you for that. That's telling. When your head coach says they were 0-5 in close games last year, 0-5. This wasn't a close game. Remember, we're talking about one-score games. But this thing was, help me out, guys, 14-11 in the fourth quarter before Oklahoma scored a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, so like you said, the final score might not have been one of those one-score losses that OU suffered, so commonly last year. But it had the chance to trend that direction. I mean, with the score 14-3, SMU scores, and instead of just kicking that extra point, they go for 2. They get the 2-point conversion, and that puts them within 3 points of Oklahoma. I mean, since the first few drives that OU had, their offense had gone really stagnant, and after SMU kind of put that fear in them, kind of brought the game really close. I think they were down by 3 with around 9 minutes left in the game. From that point on, OU kind of put the pedal to the metal on defense. They really stepped up. And they got some turnovers on downs and an interception after that on offense. They scored twice on 2 really quick drives. Kind of different play calling than we'd seen the rest of the game up to that point on those last 2 drives. So, like we said earlier, it was weird, but in the end, OU was able to, like you said, outlast and maybe get one of those hard-fought victories that they might not have been able to pull out last year.
Yeah, I want to say, I was going to say Oklahoma got basically 3 turnovers. They got a fumble, which was a brilliant freaking play by Key Lawrence, who all he did was reach in. Here comes a guy, he's getting ready to stiff arm, and he pops the ball out like he's swatting a fly. I've never seen a forced fumble like that. He just swatted at it. It was amazing. They had a block punt, which resulted in a touchdown, and then in the fourth quarter they had an interception, which resulted in a kneel down at the end of the game. I think that's right. Ryan, the defense, you mentioned it at the top. 3 turnovers, got some 3 and outs, forced some punts. The defense, for the most part of the game, it looked like they were going to get SMU with their brilliant offense, right, that we talked about all week. Dynamic, dangerous guys that OU recruited. Here, there's bugs flying around in here. It's freaking me out a little bit.
It's one cricket. We got one cricket.
I didn't know crickets could fly like that. What the heck?
Here's the thing. The AllSooners Podcast,
Sure.
It's taken over the world, and we have a live studio audience here for all of you while you watch the spat.
Radiation has changed the cricket population. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that.
Oklahoma's defense.
Oklahoma's defense was brilliant, and SMU's offense came in. We thought they were dangerous and dynamic. Like I said, a bunch of guys OU had recruited, some committed to OU, and flipped. Eventually got to SMU. Here we, late in the stages of this late stages of this game. It is after midnight. We're looking around and we're going, wait a minute. SMU's only got 3 points. that was an impressive performance by the OU defense.
Yeah, we'll couch this whole thing by, this doesn't mean that Oklahoma's defense is going to go out and be a top 10 defense this year, anything like that. But what are problems that they've had a ton the past, decade maybe? Giving up a big play and that snowballing and costing you an entire drive. Last year, this defense faded in the fourth quarter a lot. Well, it wasn't the 5 3-and-outs that they forced against Arkansas State a week ago, because as we said coming out of that game, and it was only reinforced by Arkansas State's result against Memphis, they stink. But this is a good SMU offense that came in here. I don't think it's a top 15 offense or maybe a unit that's even as efficient as they were last year, but they've got skill positions. They can hurt you. And there were a couple of drives, a bunch of drives, where SMU picked up a first down or had a big play or something like that. And in years past, the Oklahoma defense, you give up that one big play, it would have crumpled. But instead, Oklahoma's defense was able to rally and bow up a lot of times. They held SMU to 4 of 16 on third downs. That's that situational football that they didn't play at all last year, and that they've really struggled. It's complementary football. It's been a huge buzzword around here dating back to Lincoln's days, things like that.
Before that.
Yeah, well, before that as well, but especially dominated the conversation. And they were able to have big timely plays. The offense, we'll get into all of that, but you saw Oklahoma was able to utilize that depth. Kit Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, those guys were rotating in over and over from the jump. Gentry Williams went down. Brent Venables said after the game that he just tightened up in the second half, so it sounds, I don't know if you guys got a different vibe that maybe he was cramping or something of the sort, because he said he just tightened up in the second half, because he came back after initially leaving. But Kenai Walker played a ton, and Oklahoma was able to withstand that. And so that's something that you hadn't seen in the past. And if this is just a baseline for what this defense is going to be, I think it's pretty clear based off the first 2 games. Oklahoma's defense has made improvements. I think they've made significant improvements. 40 spots in total defense would put them in the 80s. So a significant improvement doesn't mean they're an elite group, but I think they are clearly, I don't know what the threshold for different planet is, but they're a lot better than they were last year.
That's a good call. I'm purely speculating here, but when he said tightened up, when he said Gentry Williams tightened up, I thought he meant his neck, because he hit the dude helmet to helmet and then came back and helped with the tackle. So I thought he meant like his neck, because he was laying on the ground and they were looking at his head and neck area. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully there's nothing serious there. Randall, I'm looking at some of these stats. SMU did not have a 100-yard rusher, did not have a 100-yard receiver. They had Jalen Knighton, former OU commit, right? 76 yards. He popped a 23-yard run. They had a couple of receivers. One guy had 7 catches for 73 yards. They had a 30-yarder and a 29-yarder, I think, and a 27-yarder, something like that, a 20-yarder and a 19-yarder. But what did you make of the way Oklahoma kind of minimized the damage that they were doing? They didn't let any big plays stack up.
Yeah, and I think Ryan kind of mentioned that, in the past we've seen if an OU defense does allow a big play, a lot of times that snowballs, and that one big play turns into a touchdown on this drive, then a touchdown on the next drive, and then OU's in a shootout. And, tonight that didn't happen. On those few plays that they did allow a big play, Key Lawrence is catching up and punching the ball out on a long run down the field. Or, they're playing this bend, don't break style defense where even if they do allow SMU to get across the 50-yard line, they're not allowing them to get 7 points out of it. One time SMU kicked a field goal, they went for it on 4th down a few times, and Justin Harrington got an interception in their side of the ball. So that, and then in addition to that, OU really hurt themselves with penalties. So being able to fight through all those penalties, being able to, really not let one bad play stick in their mind, kind of rebound and, forget the last play, go make the next play. OU was really able to do that well on the defensive side of the ball. On the defensive line, that those guys up there really, really helped cover up for that with, them stuffing the run. A lot of times at the line of scrimmage, the linebackers, Knack, Stutzman, those guys were flying around. I know Ryan mentioned Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie. Those guys were flying around making plays, kind of cleaning up everything that OU should have done. And so, there's a few missed plays, and then we saw that against Arkansas State too, busted coverages, things like that. But that's going to happen. And as long as OU's defense can do what they did today, they can recover from that, and they can not let their opponents, turn those big plays into, touchdowns on every drive, then that's what Ryan said is going to be a huge help after finishing almost 120th in the country last year in total defense.
Yeah, so Oklahoma has allowed now in 2 games 11 points. The last time that they allowed 11 points or less in their first 2 games, 1999, guys, according to the game notes. Also, this is the 3rd time in school history that they've beaten somebody 20-11. One of the other times was against SMU, 28-11. 28-11. What an odd score. And here we go. It's SMU, so I should have picked 28-11 instead of 39-24.
We'll know in their return trip when they head to Dallas and
right.
28-27. Another thing, too, Randall mentioned the penalties. Peyton Bowen in the postgame said it was 3 penalties for 45 yards on SMU's lone touchdown drive. Wasn't quite 45 yards, but it was 3 penalties on the plus side of the 50. On Oklahoma's side, you had 2 pass interferences. One of them was not a pass interference. That ref needs to send a fruit basket to Peyton Bowen. And then Brent Venables got dinged for the sideline interference, which didn't affect the outcome of the play, but it added more yards onto the other end of that. So Oklahoma really helped SMU out, and especially that last Peyton Bowen pass interference. That was a well-defended play. Oklahoma was going to have forced a field goal in that spot. It was going to be 14-6 instead of 14-11. The bad calls happen, and if Oklahoma had stopped them at any point going further down the field, wouldn't have been in that spot. I get that. But, I mean, how many times have we've been able to come in here and talk about Oklahoma gave up 1 touchdown in a game, and that 1 touchdown was helped out by penalties that were really, it wasn't we need to take this pass interference to save a touchdown. It was penalties that should be cleaned up.
Yeah, I agree. Randall, last week we talked a lot about lack of pass rush. I saw some of the same game planning that we saw today that we saw last week, which was a little bit of max protect. I think Jeff Levy was saying, Ted Roof was saying they blocked with 7 a lot of the routes. You saw 3 and 4 receivers out. You saw backs out of the backfield a lot, which explains why so many running backs were catching so many passes for SMU tonight. But Preston Stone, very impressive. Only 26 of 45, so just a little better than 50%, but 250 yards. He hit a couple of big ones.
Yeah.
What did you make of Oklahoma's lack of penetration, pass rush, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, for the 2nd week in a row, it's been low sack numbers. I don't think they recorded a sack today. Ethan Downs did get one. It was wiped off the board. I think that was a face mask call maybe that took that off the board. But Preston Stone still did not have the easiest day. I mean, he was running around a lot. And even on a few of those really nice touch passes he made, it was with guys in his face. So I think that obviously the better teams you play, I mean, we saw Texas just took down Alabama. When you get to games like that, you're going to have to get to the quarterback. You're going to have to put some pressure in his face. You're going to have to rattle those guys, the Quinn Ewers, the Jalen Daniels, some of the other top-tier quarterbacks you'll play in the Big 12. If you want to have a chance to slow down those offenses, you have to rattle those quarterbacks. You have to get to them. You have to hit them, put them on their back, get them dirty. And we haven't seen that these first 2 games, despite the fact that OU's defensive line has been really cleaning up the run game at the line of scrimmage really well. They've really made these last 2 quarterbacks, Preston Stone and JT Shrout, run around in the backfield and kind of run for their lives. I'm sure Preston Stone got some cardio in tonight doing all the running that he was doing in the backfield. But you have that being said, you still have to finish those plays. Otherwise, making him run around doesn't get it done.
I was. Let's talk about the offense. Unless you got anything more on the defense.
No.
Yeah, let's switch to the offense. I was pretty impressed with Dylan Gabriel in 2 areas. His ability to move and decide to run with the football. I'm going to run this thing, and I'm going to pick up positive yards. And then his patience with the way they were doing, a lot of their defense looked like it was kind of an umbrella coverage, where everything, if we can just force them down low, we can tackle them in bounds and things like that. And Dylan Gabriel patiently took the check down. He threw 6, or I don't know how many he threw targets. I don't have the targets here.
I think he was 19 of 27.
Yeah, I'm looking at running back targets. So 3, 7, 8. He threw to the running backs 8 times. They caught 6 passes for about 45 yards, and one of them broke free for a touchdown, Marcus Major's touchdown. I asked him about the contributions that the running backs were making during in the passing game, and he took. he kind of answered it as, hey, man, that's just part of the offense. That's part of the check down process. That's part of taking what they give you. So I was impressed that he showed patience and yet aggressiveness in the same game.
Yeah, it wasn't a situation like last week where only 3 incompletions or anything like that. He had a couple of drops tonight, but 2 of the things he did last week that I didn't see a ton of last year, don't remember seeing a ton of last year, was going over the middle of the field. Well, guess where a lot of Dylan Gabriel's drops came? Over the middle of the field. Not Dylan Gabriel's drops, but balls by Dylan Gabriel that were dropped. And then I thought last week he was really efficient using the checkdowns, didn't have to use them a ton. And tonight he put Oklahoma in situations where I just don't recall a ton of 3rd and longs outside of drives where like the offensive line had a penalty or something like that. It wasn't a 3rd and long because the offense didn't make things happen. And I think as a result of that, I know people aren't going to hear this because I thought tonight's offense looked a lot like last year's offense where they'd have this great drive where everything hits for 3 plays. Like, just take the first drive and the second drive and put them together. The first drive looked about as discombobulated as it could, which that's a scripted drive. I don't understand how that happens. Drive number 2 looked like a continuation of the script because it was boom, 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 3 plays in. And that was what I think drove a lot of Oklahoma fans mad. Here's how you know that Dylan Gabriel was better and how Oklahoma was better at not getting to those 3rd and longs. Look at the 2 second half drives. The first 2 drives in the second half. First one ends in a punt. 9 plays, 31 yards, 3:42 elapsed off the clock, ended in a punt. I don't remember drives going 3:42 at all last year.
Yep.
Drive number 2, where we got to see the Jackson Arnold package again, which we'll have to name because Brent Willis doesn't want to do it. 11 plays, 43 yards, that ticked 4:04 off the clock. Look, you're going to have to score a bunch of points if you want to win the big games, and they're going to have to fix that. The running game looked discombobulated. I thought Jeff Levy's play calling was borderline awful in the 2nd and 3rd quarter. But it wasn't as bad as it was last year. There's still a ton of improvement. It's not perfect, anything like that. But I think Dylan Gabriel's a big part of that, both his decision-making and what he was able to do with his legs, because he looks more athletic of a runner this year than last year.
I agree. Faster, more explosive, quicker, whatever it is. Randall, 19 of 27, 70% completion, 176 yards. 27 throws, 176 yards. Taking those checkdowns, but he threw 4 touchdown passes. I love Dylan Gabriel's game tonight. His passer efficiency rating, which a lot of people in these parts tend to lean on after Sam Bradford, Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts set those numbers so high. Passer efficiency was 174, which is very good. Not elite, but it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games where, being down there on the field and the way those middle 2 quarters went with Jeff Levy, really, he even said it himself in the postgame, really making that play calling too conservative. And I mean, he said that himself. He said he got too conservative in the middle parts of the game.
What, 3rd and 7 and you run up the middle?
Right. And I mean, also running the same play with Jackson Arnold multiple times on the same down and distance every single time.
Yeah.
Same formation, same pack. I mean, regardless, DG, watching him, when watching the offense, it didn't feel like they had a great night. But then after Marcus Major goes in for the touchdown, you look up on the scoreboard and you realize Dylan Gabriel's thrown 4 touchdowns and not made a lot of mistakes himself. I mean, obviously there's incompletions here and there, but there was no balls that you looked at, you're like, okay, that should have been an interception, or oh, wow, that was a terrible decision, or I don't know where he was even thinking about going with that ball. Everything seemed very methodical, very planned out, and like you guys said, he didn't force anything. When there was nothing there, he took the check down, or he got out of the pocket and he ran. And I thought one thing I really liked was his decisiveness with that. Yeah. It didn't seem like he was taking too long to decide to where, oh, well, now it's too late, I'm sacked. He saw once his guys weren't open, he tucked and he ran. And even if he didn't pick up any huge gains on the ground, those short gains, 3, 4, 5, 6 yards is a lot better than him getting dropped in the backfield, setting the offense back even further.
Yeah, like his touchdown run last week where he checks 1, checks 2, checks 3, then goes back here and then says, I guess I'll run. He didn't do that tonight. He didn't scan the field for very long. He didn't have to. Jackson Arnold?
Before we get to Jackson Arnold, just thinking 19 of 27, okay. There was a miscommunication with Gavin Freeman that should have been an easy completion.
That was a drop, right? You're talking about
not a drop. No, this was the first quarter because it was going toward the north end zone.
Yep.
And it looked like the line thought RPO and Freeman was just blocking.
Oh, yeah.
So that one was a miscommunication that Emmett Jones was all over Freeman. There was another miscommunication with L.B. Bunkley-Shelton where Emmett Jones was all over L.B. Bunkley-Shelton. Then there was the other Freeman drop as Gabriel was rolling out. And then there was the Andrew Anthony drop. That's that's 4 balls that should have been probably easy completions, and suddenly I think if Dylan Gabriel's 23 of 27, probably in the 210, 220 range in passing yards, I wonder, A, how much different the offense looks as far as finding a rhythm, but I bet a lot of people, if you told them that stat line coming into the game, they'd be like, oh yeah, another efficient performance from Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I thought Dylan was really good, and that's a great illustration of how good he was. Jackson Arnold, this thing's getting a little weird. You can tell fans want to love the Belldozer package, for lack of a better word. We'll try to come up with a name for it. We need Jake Trotter. He came up with the Belldozer. You can tell fans want to love it, right? He comes on the field and everybody gets excited, and then he takes the snap and runs 2 yards into the line of scrimmage and falls down. It's like you've got a mule in your backyard. You want to love the mule, but it just kind of stands there, right? I don't know. That's a bad analogy, I'm sure, but they got to come up with a nickname first, because right now Brent Venables said, and I think Levy confirmed, they call it Sub. No, don't call it Sub. Come up with something cute, or we will, right? But I just thought it was very unimaginative.
They've got, first off, Peyton Bowen talked about they've got the Cyclone package and the 6-pack defensively when they get into 3rd and long. I do not believe for a second that doesn't have a name. But if it has a name, then it's one of those things. It's like the stray cat, right? You can't name it, otherwise the kids are going to want to keep it. I think if they name it, the fans have something to latch on to. And the fans are going to want to keep it, despite the fact that they're running right into the back of the line of scrimmage.
I'll give you guys the full goods right here. I asked Dylan Gabriel, does it have a nickname? And he said, he looks over where Jeff Levy was talking, and he's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is. We have a nickname, but we'll just hold on to it for now. So there's a name out there for the Jackson Arnold Belldozer package. We've got to come up with something, though. But anyway, what I was getting at was it was very... 4 plays for 11 yards? Is that what it was?
And most of that came on one run.
4 plays, 4 rushes, 11 yards, 2.8 per carry. No imagination whatsoever.
Yeah,
With your 5-star freshman quarterback.
I've got a blanket statement, and this isn't meant to be a shot at anybody. When you go 6 and 7, I don't want you to be vanilla next year. You cannot afford. Who are you saving it for?
Yeah.
It was 14-11 with SMU on your home field in the 4th quarter. Quit the vanilla crap. Just play football. You're not good enough. Brent Venables said they're not good enough to worry about Billy Bowman not playing special teams. Yep. I got news for you. You're not good enough to hide the passing play out of that package for Texas. Cincinnati looked, I don't know how that finished, but they gave Pitt a fight, a team that was totally rebuilt. Iowa State, defensively, looks like they're still fine despite who knows who's gambling the names. You are not good enough to hide that crap. Jeff Levy, this offense is not good enough to get conservative for 2 quarters of football.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Stop that. Anyway, Jackson Arnold. Most of that yardage came on the one time that he actually busted through as well. Mm-hmm. He looked comfortable. I understand if you're going into short yardage, Dylan Gabriel's capable, but not wanting to get hit and all that stuff, seeing as you've got the whole offense available with Gabriel, someone comes in, because you know what's going to happen. If Jackson Arnold's in that package, everyone's going to try and put a hat on his right shoulder. That's football. That's what happens.
I got it.
And so I get not wanting to run Gabriel to that, but you can't just run the same play over and over, even against SMU.
I got a bad feeling about the Jackson Arnold package, the Jackson Arnold play that we saw 4 times. And that is he's 6 foot, maybe a shade over 6 foot, 200 pounds, 205. He's not 6'6", 250 like Blake Bell. You cannot... he's a 5-star quarterback. You've said it many times. He's the face of the future of this program. I'll be honest with you. It's fun to watch him do it. I hate it. I absolutely hate bringing a freshman in. I had 2 thoughts. One thought was, I leaned over to you and I said, this one's going to be a pass. No, not a pass. Just leaned into I think it was the one where they came up short on the 4th down, which was a disaster. The other is Kevin Sperry, Michael Hawkins. What's the kid's name from Ohio, the quarterback? Zurbrugg. They're looking at that going, that's what they do with their freshman quarterbacks? They make them play fullback into the line? Make them play single wing tailback? What is that? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Jackson Arnold package. I would be a better fan if they ran some stuff out of it, not just, hey, we need 2 yards, go in there and get us 2 yards. He's not that dude. He's not. If you're going to run the Wildcat, get a 6 foot, 225-pound running back to run the Wildcat, not your 5-star future quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I mentioned it to you, just a few minutes ago when we were talking about this. It felt like every time they pulled that play out, it was the same down and distance every time. And I mean, when you're running the same package with the, out of the same set, same down and distance, I mean, the defense is going to pick up on that.
Yep.
Like Ryan said, you're not good enough to out. I mean, we saw it. They're not good enough to just flat out athlete SMU on that because they didn't pick up that first down. And so I think that you obviously want to get some reps with Jackson Arnold, but maybe not. Obviously, the risk of injury is there, but really give him some more diversity in the reps that he's getting. So maybe he's got more experience throwing a pass in a dire situation, or not dire, but a meaningful situation, a more tense situation than it was last week. I mean, last week he said he didn't have nerves. Well, if you put him in the game against SMU when Oklahoma's up by 3 or 8 or whatever the score is, then that's a little more of a high pressure situation for Jackson Arnold. That gets him a little more ready, which everyone's been talking about. They want to see. They want to see Jackson Arnold, be ready for the SEC next year. And I don't think that having him run a draw play every time he gets in is how you do that. Now, I think
if he wasn't ready for SMU in 2023, is he going to be ready for Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee in 2024?
Right.
Right? I mean, get him ready.
I think maybe the strategy behind this is, like Ryan was saying, is they just want to put this play on tape, and so teams like Texas, teams like Cincinnati will see this and they'll say, okay, when Jackson Arnold comes in, they're going to run the ball into the back of the line, and then you can they can hopefully bust out a play action or some sort of different type of play. But I agree with Ryan. You are not good enough to hide things. Get out there, get the reps, practice it, see how it looks, and then just go try to be better at football. Go try to beat these guys straight off the line.
Yeah.
Don't try this gimmicky, stuff like that, like where you're only going to run this play in this game. If this is a play that's going to be in the playbook, go out there, run it against SMU, see what Jackson Arnold looks like. Don't just let him slam himself into the back of some linemen.
I can make you guys a promise right now. If Jackson Arnold hasn't thrown a pass out of that package by the time Oklahoma steps to the Cotton Bowl, the very first time they get into it, on 3rd and 1, they're going to try and throw the pass. And Pete Kwiatkowski is going to have Texas' defense, because you know what he's going to say all week?
Yep.
Hey guys, this dude's a 5-star. Roll the tape of him throwing guys open against Arkansas State, and against Arkansas State, but be like, he can throw the ball the first time that they roll out there. I would imagine they're going to try and throw the ball. Because you know why? If they'll run that play on 3rd and 1 and run it on 4th and 1, if it's an incomplete pass, they'll just run the same play on 4th and 1. Any coach with a brain is going to do that. And I don't know anything about football compared to the coaches, but I think there's been a lot of overthinking that's happened the last year and 2 games in the offensive coaching booth by Oklahoma, and I think the fans are kind of over it, because there were boos on the field.
Yeah,
you could hear it in the press box that the fans were booing the 3rd and 7 run up the middle, the over and over. I don't know how much the fans are on board with the Jeff Levy experience.
You should have heard it down on the field. The boos were echoing down there. I mean, it was very evident that the fan base. I mean, we know that they're not booing the players down there on the field in that moment. This wasn't a Spencer Rattler situation. They were very upset with the plays that were being run. And I mean, I could hear that the fans behind me in the stands were talking about that. They were audibly upset with the play call, with, like Ryan said, how vanilla it was.
Yeah, let's talk about the running game as long as we're talking about Jackson Arnold and the dozer package, the Jackson dozer, whatever. It's stupid. Let's talk about the ground game. Tawee Walker was fantastic, 21 carries, 117 yards. Marcus Major less so, 8 carries, 39 yards. Then you got a couple of quarterbacks, and you got Javonte Barnes, guys, with 2 carries for 5 yards. Gavin Sawchuk, 1 for 1. We've been duped. It's 2 games into the season, so don't read too much into one thing or another. But one guy's kind of separating himself in this running back group.
Let's start this with Tawee Walker. I would like to separate Tawee Walker for the hammering that will happen, because I think the offensive line has been poor in the running game, and I think the running backs have been worse outside of Tawee Walker. Tawee Walker was awesome tonight. Walk on, going out there, Like you mentioned, 117 yards. And when Oklahoma was able to find a little bit of rhythm outside of the one or two quick strikes that they had, it was because Tawi Walker was able to mow through the first guy. Tawi Walker was the guy that was comfortable following his blockers, and he was patient enough to let the plays develop. He was bouncing outside. I thought that was really, really good. And he's a really fun guy to talk to. He's very easy. Tawi Walker's college football, right? Walk on, coming on, having this huge role early on, someone that no one was talking about at the start of fall camp. That's really great. Marcus Major looked really sluggish, I thought. He was not a decisive runner when he got the ball. Javonte Barnes still looks like he's running to contact and trying to run guys over. I think Sawchuk, he was dealing with a hamstring in fall camp. We saw his first couple of snaps. I think that clearly Gavin Sawchuk, they do not feel he's 100% healthy, or they're protecting him. Because the guy is explosive at that. We saw it in the Cheez-It Bowl. Gavin Sawchuk has star potential. So that, to me, has to be why he's not on the field. Because Javonte Barnes, I don't think we've been duped with Javonte Barnes. I know it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but like we saw what happened last year. I just don't think the offensive line's opening up big holes in the running game. They ran for under 4 yards a carry against Arkansas State. Arkansas State sucks at football, and they couldn't just mow guys off the line of scrimmage. They were really good in pass pro last week. This SMU defensive line had a lot more success. I think you saw that SMU didn't have the depth, didn't have the horses to get across the finish line late in the third and fourth quarter. But the offensive line, I know they feel good about it. Let's slow the roll. They've got some gelling to do. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. Bunch of new starters. Matauer moving over to the right side, but
they've got some work to do.
They've got a lot of improvements they have to make in the running game. They got a lot of stuff they've got to button up.
Can I say two quick things on Tawi Walker that I noticed from being down on the field?
He's on the field for every game.
Yeah.
Sideline, except for next week. He'll be on the field.
So what I noticed being on the field is that, one, Tawi Walker runs really hard. I mean, like again, not the biggest guy on the field, but he runs very hard. Every time even if there's not a defender in his way, he's running hard. And when he does make contact, there's going to be a collision, whether he's going down or not. It seems like every time he carries the ball, he just falls forward. I don't recall seeing him. I mean, again, obviously it's SMU and Arkansas State, but in these first 2 weeks, I don't really recall seeing him lose yards. Yeah. Every time he gets the ball, it feels like it's a gain. It feels like he's falling forward. And the thing that I've really noticed that he's really good at, that some of the other OU backs struggle with, is that when the hole is small, he does a great job of getting skinny and fitting through those tight holes and getting the yards through the line of scrimmage there. That's what I really noticed, is that, Major, Barnes, some of those broader shouldered backs, they couldn't get through the skinnier holes that OU's line was building tonight, and sometimes those are only 5-6 yard runs, but obviously it adds up. I mean, Tawi ended up with 117 yards, so that's what I noticed from being down there.
Guys, my prediction that Austin Stogner is going to be third on the team this year with 40 catches is well underway. He caught his first pass tonight. He's got one reception on the season for 2023. He's not going to catch 40 passes. Come on. Austin Stogner, I'm rolling the dice on you, man. No, the guy that's going to lead this team in receiving, I think, showed tonight what he's capable of. Andrell Anthony, 7 catches, 76 yards, had the 29-yard touchdown. And I don't think his full potential was anywhere near tapped. I see him having he's going to have one of those seasons where he's got 4 or 5 70-yard touchdowns. Yeah. He's a special player. Yeah,
and Brent Venables talked about kind of the defensive strategy that SMU deployed in the postgame. Played a lot of guys deep and basically trying to, have everybody dink and dunk underneath, like you mentioned earlier. And so for Andrell Anthony, on paper, that should have been the thing that takes him out of the game, right? SMU, it almost felt like they were like, over my dead body is Andrell Anthony going to come in and do what he did to Arkansas State, which is hit for a 40-plus yard pass, draw a couple more pass interferences downfield. And Andrell Anthony showed tonight he can affect the game. He can be a part of the game plan without just hitting on vertical goal balls. He had the one drop, but he had a really nice moment. And it feels like Andrell Anthony is clearly the wide receiver one. Jalil Farouk has been
missing in action.
Yes.
Caught a couple of passes tonight. Scored a touchdown, 21-yard touchdown.
And it was a great touchdown, too. It was a pass that he made both SMU defenders miss. It pretty much iced the game. I know that Major came in and had the last score, but that one to me was the one that iced it when SMU was like, okay, now it's 21-11. Oklahoma's extended again. But the questions we asked all offseason, is Jalil Farouk wide receiver 1 material, or is he just a really talented wide receiver to be in a rotation? The guy that's looked closest to a wide receiver 1, the go-to guy, has been Andrew Anthony.
Yeah, I agree with that. Drake Stoops was back tonight from the slight shoulder separation. Caught 2 passes.
Blocked really well.
Blocked his butt off, as they say. Blake Smith caught a touchdown pass. Remember him from the spring game? They told us he was a designated blocker and he'd never catch a pass, and he has 3 career receptions. And comes to Oklahoma, and he's a big threat. He caught a big one last week. He caught a touchdown this week. I don't know what to make, Randall, of this receiver core. And I asked Dylan Gabriel midweek on Tuesday, I believe it was, who's going to lead the team in receiving? He's like, I have no idea. Well, it could be any number of guys.
Right now, it seems like Andrew Anthony is really emerging and going to take that mantle as the team's leading receiver, the team's number 1 guy. But I think what's a little more worrisome, and this is something that we might have, I don't know that we predicted, but we talked about it. We did use this as a talk point all offseason, was the depth at receiver.
Yeah.
Tonight behind Andrew Anthony, there wasn't really many guys who caught many chunk plays or. Yeah, I was going to say, how many...
Three wideouts total caught plays tonight.
And did any of those wideouts other than Andrew have more than 1 catch?
Drake had 2 and Farouk had 2.
Yeah. I mean, these guys, again, Farouk had the long touchdown where he made... They're not long, but he had the touchdown where he made a few guys miss. But I mean, really, we've heard about Gavin Freeman. We've heard what he is. He wasn't really a factor today. I mean, we know Drake Stoops is that slot receiver, and he did Drake Stoops things today, but you can't count on Drake Stoops to lead your offense, and obviously they're not. But OU really needs to develop some better receiver rotation, some guys who can step in, make these plays.
Where was Nick Anderson? Where was Jaden Gibson tonight?
Well, these guys both got. I mean, we saw them out there. They just didn't get any targets. Yeah. I mean, Jaden Gibson's on the field when Marcus Major scored the touchdown, but I don't think either one of them were even targeted. And so. Again, I think that goes back really to
it's a coverage thing with SMU's defense, the way they were deploying. I get it.
I think also it goes back though to Levy's conservative play calling, which he acknowledged. Again, that's not me calling Jeff Levy play calling conservative. He said it himself, and I think that goes back to why these receivers didn't get a lot of run tonight. I mean, we mentioned that Coach Emmett Jones, the receivers coach, was kind of ripping into a few of these guys, so that might have been on them too. They might not have had the best performance, but again, it doesn't help get in rhythm when your offensive coordinator is killing the momentum of your team by just running the ball into the back of the offensive lineman after a few successful drives to start the game.
One more?
Coming out of 2 games, they don't have a clear-cut wide receiver 1. Their running back 1, Tommy Walker, has been the most effective, but you saw the one play that Tommy Walker busted off. He did not have the speed in the open field to turn the corner and house it.
That's right.
Against Texas, if you busted the open field, you've got to make that work for every yard you can get. Otherwise, they're more apt, especially with how the offense sputtered today, to step back up and say, okay, that's suddenly just a field goal. And we've still not seen clutch kicks. We don't know if that's a thing. The holding was a lot better today. I think a lot of last week's PAT issues were off of holds, and the holding was a lot better today. But if I'm Oklahoma, I'm not trusting the kicking game to go out there and win you a close contest. They just off of last year until you see them win you one. Like you need a running back 1 that can turn that into almost a touchdown. And I just don't think that's Tommy Walker. I think that Tommy Walker's a fine running back, but he doesn't have that top end. It's like Dominique Whaley, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like he bounces off of people.
Who went 64 for a touchdown against Texas.
Yeah, well, he's not as fast as Dom Whaley, and he's not as much AP Ryan either. But and so I think that's the issue right now, especially about an offensive line that, again, I've not been super impressed with what they've done in the run game at all, just top to bottom.
I think that one thing that was really notable to me about the offensive line specifically is that when you saw Savion Byrd get subbed out for Troy Everett at that left guard spot, it seemed like the offense as a whole performed a lot better tonight. That's what I noticed.
That's something to keep an eye on. Savion Byrd got pulled out, and the offense kind of picked up a little bit. It looked like Troy Everett might be taking some of his snaps, if not all of them.
Savion did come back later in the game, but I agree with you when Troy was in the offense.
Let's talk special teams real quick. There's one we're going to save for last, obviously, but kick return coverage. OU only allowed 1 kick return for 6 yards. Punt return coverage, 2 returns for -5 yards. Those guys were getting after guys on the return game. That's good to see. Oklahoma had 2 punters tonight, ran out 2 punters tonight. They both did their job. Luke Alzinga punted twice. Josh Plaster punted 3. I know that's way too much for Jeff Lebby. But your long punter averaged 43 yards a kick, and your short punter averaged 36 and had 2 inside the 20. So that's good. That's what you want out of those guys. Kick returns, Farouk had a 29-yarder. That's what you want. Gavin Freeman, nothing to report on punt returns, 1 for 7 yards. The one we got to talk about is the one that started the scoring for Oklahoma, and that was Peyton Bowen's blocked punt. How about that? You look at Peyton Bowen, you say, gosh dang, 5-star safety. Kid he knows everything about football. They've talked about football coming easy for him. Oops. Something happened tonight wasn't supposed to happen.
The punt block was not supposed to happen, at least not how it was drawn up. Who, I believe you asked Brent Venables about that after the game, and Brent Venables said, Jay Valai works on the punt coverage as well as the special teams analyst, Jay Nunez. And Brent Venables said that they had thought that there was the opportunity to block one, and he said, we didn't think it was going to be Peyton. Well, we found out why when I was talking to Peyton Bowen. That's because Peyton Bowen was not supposed to rush the punter. He was not supposed to be involved there. Peyton said, my job was supposed to help out blocking one of the blockers. But when it lined up and the guard wasn't over him, and he said, well, this looks different than what it looked like on film. And Peyton Bowen said, I think I'm going to go get that. And he did. So I asked him what the conversation was on the sideline coming back knowing that you blocked it but you weren't supposed to be out there. And he's like, they didn't say a thing. They'll probably cover it tomorrow. But as for tonight, everybody was happy. But that's why, newsflash, 5-star players help you win football games. Because not only does he have the athleticism, but Peyton Bowen is he's a 5-star between the ears. That's what it is. And today, guys, he played just defensively. He played safety. He played cheetah. There was a moment that he was deployed at middle linebacker. Like, he was the sub for Jaron Kanek. Like, Peyton Bowen, he talked to us that he's been learning 5 different positions in camp. You saw that both defensively at a key 4th down pass breakup, but the punt block.
Any thoughts on special teams? You being down there on the field, you see a different angle of it than we did, Randall.
Yeah, I mean the return by Farouk was really looked really good from our angle. I thought that he saw some good vision to take that kick. I think that was one that he could have let bounce, and he decided to take that one out and return it. The punt by Gavin Freeman, the punt return by Gavin Freeman, we kind of talked about it last week. It feels like he runs the most yards to get not as many yards.
He's going to pop one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, he popped one last week, right?
And I mean, every time he touches the ball, the crowd, they kind of they make that noise. They get on their feet, like, okay, is this gonna be another one? Because it feels like almost every time he touches the ball, something big happens. But in the special teams department, I thought that their coverage looked really good tonight. Punts and kick coverage looked really good. And then the one time that SMU tried to take one out, they kind of bobbled the ball, and OU made them pay. They downed them, I think, inside the 15 and close to the 10-yard line. Nothing too flashy outside of the punt block, obviously, but that special teams unit, they performed just like they wanted. I mean, SMU didn't even make a PAT.
So, speaking of PATs, I gave Zach Schmidt a little too much credit last week. I went back and watched the video, watched the TV copy, and he was spraying him just inside the upright every time. It was weird to watch. He does not look comfortable. Well, I don't know what his report was tonight. Did you happen to see the trajectory on any of those extra points?
Tonight they looked good. I mean, in the game notes it said he went 4 for 4, and that he's in his career he hasn't missed a PAT at Oklahoma. So shout out to Zach Schmidt for that. But
you played basketball with him.
I played a lot of basketball with Zach Schmidt. Yep. If you're seeing this, maybe text me.
The holds looked really rough last week. There were 2 or 3. There was one that he had to stop. Yep. The holds were a lot cleaner. That was actually a conversation. I was talking to Bob Prisbill and George Stoya. We were like, was there going to be a change at holder today? Because the holds were poor on the PATs last week.
Did you notice the holder today? Because last week it was Ashton Logan.
Elzinga was your holder today.
So there was a change at holder.
They announced Plaster at one point today. The PA guy in the press box here announced Plaster.
The PA guy has been wrong before.
He's just saying what somebody's telling him.
Well, I think he's just saying what it claims is on the depth chart. But
Yep.
it was a different holding situation. It was a lot cleaner today, and I thought from what I remember, the PATs looked a lot better today.
I agree. The PAT situation looked normal.
Good.
From
No
my
field goal
angle.
attempts. No field goals, so nothing to report there. Let's get to the elephant in the room, shall we? Boy, there's no way to really approach this other than Parker Thune, our guy, who we've talked about on this show before. He watches the games from the sidelines. He's got a camera. He shoots video and photos. He shot a photo, you guys have seen it by now, of Jeff Lebby talking to his father-in-law on the sideline after the game. No big deal, right? Other than his father-in-law happens to be Art Briles. Art Briles was wearing a ball cap and an OU t-shirt, an officially licensed OU logo emblazoned long sleeve crimson t-shirt. Now, like I said, there's no easy way to say this. Art Briles is a toxic figure. Art Briles does not belong on the Oklahoma sideline, even if he is, guys, even if he is Jeff Lebby's father-in-law. He said, he's the grandfather to my 2 kids. That's awesome. Meet him at Applebee's after the game. You can't bring Art Briles on the field. If he wants to buy a ticket, he's welcome to come to the game. If he wants to buy a luxury suite, loge box ticket, something like that, where Jeff Lebby has, guest passes or whatever, fine, he can buy a ticket. He wants to go to Walmart and buy a t-shirt, he can buy a t-shirt, right? He can't be given anything from the coaching staff. He can't be welcomed. He can't be on the field with the team after the game. I'm sorry, but he can't. The man is toxic. His name is stained forever. How else can we say it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
After the game, Brent Venables said that he was made aware of the situations being dealt with. Athletic Director Joe Castiglione issued a statement. Hoove has all of that, AllSooners.com.
I'll read you the statement from Joe C. I was just as disappointed as many of our fans when I learned of the postgame situation tonight. It shouldn't have happened, and it was my expectation that it never would based on boundaries we previously set. I've addressed it with the appropriate staff. So what he's saying is essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here because I wasn't in the room, I'm drawing a big supposition. Yes, you can hire Jeff Lebby as your offensive coordinator. Just make sure that there's nothing to do with Art Briles. Okay, Joe, you got it, man. That's the conversation between, something like that took place between Brent and Joe. What happens? Week 2 of season 2, and there's Art Briles on the sideline. Like, what? Joe Castiglione was probably furious about this.
And regardless of how you feel about the situation, how you feel about Art Briles, I saw some comments saying that he was I can't think of the word, but that he was anyway, regardless of what you think of Art Briles, the optics of the situation for recruiting, for potential transfers, things like that, it does not look very good.
The image of a multi-million-dollar company, which is OU football.
Exactly. And again, regardless of how you feel about the situation, that is the truth, is that it's a bad look for recruiting and for the company the brand that is OU football.
Yeah, you got to protect the brand. I mean, Joe Castiglione has painstakingly, for the last 25 years, protected the OU brand. And then he goes out to a game and there's Art Briles walking around in OU gear. You can't have that. We're not going to beat it to death, but Jeff Lebby said he was down with our family, our entire family after the game. Well after the game, he was down there with the entire family. So for Jeff Lebby, it was a family situation. But kudos to Parker for taking that photo.
That's wrong. It was not well after the game. It was on the side. It was immediately after the game when everyone's going over to sing the alma mater, because that's when we're on the field. Well after the game, we're all in the red room. That is incorrect.
Several people saw him. It wasn't just Parker. Several people in the media said, "Wait a minute, that's Art Briles."
And this can't happen. And the way it was handled by Oklahoma's offensive coordinator, where he bristled at the question, Art Briles is stained in football.
Yeah.
Art Briles cannot work in football. Art Briles should not work in football. For everyone knows the situation. How this happens, how he is on the field, is a failure top to bottom. And I was unimpressed with the questions that were answered, which weren't really answered when Jeff Lebby was hired, about the vetting process.
Yeah.
I just wanted a better answer about the vetting process, and it was just, we went through our to-do, moving on, okay, great, Jeff Lebby's the offensive coordinator, all that stuff. Thankfully, it's not been a headache. I didn't expect it was going to be a headache past the opening press conference, and I was not satisfied with that answer, but the dealings I've had with Jeff Lebby, I found him to be great to talk to, insightful, all the stuff. This is just the one thing that can't happen. It's the one thing that cannot happen at Oklahoma, and it did, like you said, year 2, game 2.
It's a decision that Jeff Lebby made without consulting his boss, who's Brent Venables, and his boss, who is Joe Castiglione. Obviously, if he had gone to Brent and said, "Hey, can I bring my dad, my father-in-law? Can I bring Coach Briles?" Brent would have said, "I don't think so. Let me run it by Joe C." And Joe C would have said, "Hell no." Clearly, Jeff Lebby made a decision that was not his to make. Brent was asked, "Hey, did you know Art Briles was down there?" He goes, "I was made aware just before I came in here for the post-game interview that he was, and I think that's being dealt with. It already has been," he said. So nobody was happy about this. Jeff Lebby bristled at the questions from the media, which some of you may be saying right now, okay, move on, we're bristling at the question. All you gotta do is ask for Joe Castiglione's comment. Jeff Lebby can bristle all he wants at the media. He ain't bristling at Joe Castiglione, or he's gonna find himself unemployed real quick.
And
he's the boss.
And it was
Joe
as
C.
simple as what you said, Hoove. I get it, part of the family, father-in-law, grandfather.
And it's a tough call. It is. For him, it is.
Not on the field. Not on the field, not in the facility, not in the locker room. That's the thing. Can't be on the field, can't be in the facility,
Up here
can't be
in
in
the
the locker
Santee
room.
Lounge. Up here in the low suites.
Be in the suites. If he drives the Lebby family to dinner, you guys have dinner, great. Go for it. Perfect. Nobody cares.
Agreed.
And what I was trying to say earlier, some people have been defending it because he was exonerated. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Again, that doesn't matter in this case. OU's not here to prosecute criminal decisions. It's about optics, it's about what it looks like and how the look it gives to the program, the brand, all of that.
Yep. Anyway, I don't think we got anything else, do we?
On to Tulsa.
On to Tulsa.
You guys can't you can't understand how excited I am for next week's post game, where we get to say the classic, we're on to Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, hey, that's coming up.
Next week's postgame will be a 2-man.
Yeah, word is right now that Randall won't be joining us. They'll have 2 people, one on the sideline, one in the press box. So it's me in the press box. You guys can't understand how excited I am to cover a road game that's 8 miles from my house. I'm so excited.
Should be good. Should be good. And
instead of 140 miles and getting home at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
4:30. I'll be home tonight at 4:30 a.m.
Good news for everyone who was, if you were unsatisfied with this performance, I have been on the field for Oklahoma, Kansas 2 years ago. Remember that contest? And I've been on the field for Oklahoma, West Virginia last year. So great track record.
Ryan _ Ryan Chapman.
Yes,
hit him up.
Yes, I just hope I bring no Morgantown flu back with me this time.
Anything else?
Nah, I think that's all from me.
That's all we got. 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Who's got the game next week? Espen?
I need to look. Stand by. I believe
Can't
ESPN. Give me 10 seconds.
Can't remember. Anyway, that's what we've got for tonight's podcast. What did I say? It was episode 205.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read that rigmarole at the end. You guys know where to find. Anywhere you find your podcast, go, Ryan.
It's on the Deuce.
It's on the ESPN 2. Cool. Anywhere you find your podcast is where you're going to find the AllSooners Podcast. We're going to have tons of coverage tomorrow, believe it or not. Randall was out recruiting last night, covering recruiting. Tim was out covering recruiting last night. So AllSooners is where you want to be. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage of next week's Tulsa game, press conference, interviews, practice, all that stuff at allsooners.com. I need to do this more often. I need to do a better job of it because these guys are badasses For Ryan Chapman, for Randall Sweet, I'm John Hoover. We'll see you guys.